Good evening everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 11th of May. In News Today, we cover the most important news development of the day along with the PYQs of mains as well as of the prelims examination. My name is Anuj and I will be taking today's session. In today's session, we will be covering 4 main news and 8 quick update and 1 personality in news. In the first main news, we will be covering about the Somnath Temple as we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the reopening of the Somnath Temple. Then the second main news is about the new labor code as the government have notified the new labor code. Then in the third main news, we will be discussing about the Jan Suraksha schemes as the Honorable Prime Minister have highlighted the impact of Jan Suraksha schemes on completing the 11 years. Then the last main news is about micro irrigation, and the context for that news is that the government targets additional 100 lakh hectares under the micro irrigation. So these are the main news, and along with the main news we will be discussing PYQs from the prelims as well as from the mains perspective. And after that we will be covering personality in news, and today's personality in news is Rabindranath Tagore. Then we will be briefly going through the quick update. So this is the brief about the today's session, and let us start the session with the first news. So first news is about the Somnath Temple, and the context here is that we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the reopening of the Somnath Temple. Somnath Temple is a very old temple, but it was destroyed many times, and first by the Muhammad Ghazni in 1026, and we have completed 1000 year to that as well. So it was reopened on 11th of May 1975 after destruction of it by many rulers at many times, and it was looted around 17 times in the history. It is related to paper 1 where syllabus is about art and culture. Let us discuss this news in detail. We have discussed the context and we have briefly touched the context development as well. It was reopened by that time President Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And there is a mythological story related to the Somnath Temple. Som, which stands for moon. So basically, this moon god have married the 27 daughter of Daksha Prajapati. But he used to love more to only one of his wife, that was Rohini. So by that, the father of the girls got angry and cursed the Somdev, that is moon, that you will lose your luster. That means you will lose your shining part. So by getting anxious by this curse, the moon went to the Somnath, or near to the area where Somnath Temple is there, and he prayed to Lord Shiva. And by looking at his devotion and his prayer, Shiva relieved him from his curse and said that you will be signing for 15 days and you won't be signing for the 15 days. That is the story behind the name of the Somnath Temple. Now let us understand in details all the aspect related to Somnath Temple. First of all, be very clear that it is a Triveni Sangam. Here 3 rivers comes and merge. What are those 3 rivers? One is Kapila, another one is Hiran, and third one is Saraswati. So these 3 rivers have a merging point in the Somnath. Then it is one of the 12 Adi Jyotirlingas. There are 12 Jyotirlingas in India, and it is believed to be very first one. Okay, and Jyotirlingas mean column or pillar of light. Then Its location is there in Prabhaspatan along the Saurashtra coast in Gujarat. Prabhaspatan you might have also read in the Harappan civilization. It is a site which was there at the time of Harappan civilization as well. Then, what are the literary sources for Somnath Temple? One is Dwadesh Jyotirlinga Strotam, and it considered and places Somnath first among the 12 Jyotirlingas. Then we have Skanda Purana, Prabhasa Khanda, and Rigved and Bhagavad. Even the great Kalidas have mentioned about Somnath in his text Raghuvamsa. And what are the religious sects associated with the Somnath temple? One is Shaivism, as Lord Shiva is prayed here. Vaishnavism, the Lord Krishna is believed to commensurate his journey leaving the earth from Somnath. Then it is also related to Shaktism, specifically Chandrabhaga Shaktism. What is Shaktism? Basically, after the cremation of goddess Shakti, her body parts fell on the various places, and those places are known as Shakti Peeths. And this area is associated with Chandrabhaga Shakti Peeth. Okay, so it is associated with Shaivism, it is associated with Vaishnavism, it is also associated with Shaktism. Okay, so foreign travelers also associated with it, and not directly associated, they have mentioned about it in their books. Basically, Al-Biruni in his book Kitab ul Hind, in that text he has mentioned about Somnath. Even Amir Khusro have mentioned about Somnath temple and attack of Alaluddin Khilji on Somnath temple. He has mentioned about that. Amir Khusro has also mentioned about that. Now let us move forward and learn about the architecture. So this architecture is known by the Chalukya style, or also known by the Kailas Mahameru Prasad style. Basically, it is culmination or the hybrid form of Nagara as well as Dravida. Nagara style of architecture is there in the northern India, whereas Dravidian architecture or the temple architecture is in the South India. It is mixture of both. That is known as Vesara style, which blend Nagara style with the Dravidian style. And what does this constitute? It constitutes Sikhara, which is known as Vimana in Dravidian. It is basically the pillar above the Garbhagriha, column, not the pillar, above the Garbhagriha. Garbhagriha is basically where the main deity reside, is the Garbhagriha. Then it has Sabha Mandap as well and Nritya Mandap. And traditional carving are there, and a spacious clean courtyard with the Ban Stamp, which is pointing towards the South Pole. So there is a Ban Stamp, and there is no landmass from the Ban Stamp towards the south till the Antarctica. That is Ban Stamp. Then material used is built up of sandstone. So this is about the present Somnath temple architecture. Then about its restoration, in the 12th century it was restored by the Kumarapala. In 13th century it was restored by the king of Junagadh. In 18th century it was restored by Ahilyabai Holkar, and in 1951 the Pran Pratishtha, which is known as the opening, was done by the then president Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and its construction work was initiated by the deputy prime minister, who was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, in the 1947. This temple was attacked many times by the various rulers from Muhammad Ghazni to the Aurangzeb, but it has shown that the temple was built again and again, and it faced all the diversity and adversity, but is erected and is showing the faith in the humanity, or showing the faith to the humanity. So this was all about the Somnath Temple. Now let us discuss one PYQ related to this news. PYQ is from the year 2022. The question is, the Prime Minister recently inaugurated the new circuit house near Somnath Temple at Varaswal. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the Somnath Temple? First, Somnath Temple is one of the Jyotirlinga shrines. It is correct. There are 12 Jyotirlinga shrines in India, and it is considered as the first Jyotirlinga shrine. Then second, a description of Somnath Temple was given by Al-Biruni. We have discussed the description about the Somnath Temple was given by the Al-Biruni, and we others authors as well have also described about Somnath Temple, including the Amir Khusro. Then the Pran Pratishtha of the Somnath Temple, installation of the present day temple, was done by the President S. Radhakrishnan. So it was done by the Dr. Rajendra Prasad in the year 1951, not by the S. Radhakrishnan. So the answer would be 1 and 2 only. So with this, we have completed our first news. Now let us move to the second news. Second news is related to the 4 labor code, and they have been notified by the government. It is related to paper 3, where syllabus talks about changes in industrial policy. Let us discuss this news and understand what are the important aspects from our exam perspective. First of all, the development. So center have notified 2026 rules under the 4 labor code which came into force last year. So these rules are already in the force, but they have been notified now. Now let us discuss some prelims related fact first. So labor as a subject is mentioned in the concurrent list. As prelims exam is coming, so we should be focusing more on the aspect from the prelims examination. So labor as a subject is mentioned in the concurrent list. In the Article 43, the Constitution talk about living wage. If there is a question that which article talk about living wage. Now you should also understand what is the difference between floor wage, then minimum wage, and then living wage. So basically, floor wage is set by the central government, that below this, the wage to a worker cannot be given. So floor wage act like a floor below which state or the central cannot set the minimum wage. That means minimum wage is equal to floor wage or higher than the floor wage. Then what is living wage? Basically, to afford a lifestyle, labor needs some type of wage. To afford a particular lifestyle, there is living wage. So if we talk generally, the lowest will be floor wage, then it will be minimum wage, and then it will be living wage. So this is the difference between floor wage, minimum wage, and living wage. Many of the articles in our fundamental right talk about the employment and the labor. There are chances that UPSC can ask that which of the following fundamental right talk or related to the employment and labor. So particular articles which are related to labor and employment, which are given in the PIB when they have given this news, are Article 16, Article 19, Article 23, and Article 24. And Labor Bureau note down the various information or data related to layoff, retrenchment, closures, working disputes, and industrial disputes from the various industries. So these are the facts related to the prelims examination. Now let us go through the four codes. So previously there was 29 laws and they were consolidated, and presently there are four codes. So what are the key highlights of the notified rules? First one, codes on wages rule. So it normal working day fixed at 8 hours and maximum weekly limit is set at the 48 hours. So a worker can work for 8 days. After that, he should be entitled or she should be entitled for extra payment. Then national floor wage. We have to discuss about floor wage as well as the minimum wage. Should be very clear about these terms. So center to fix a national floor wage based on the minimum living standard, food, clothing, housing, and other aspects. Then minimum wage, it will be fixed on a daily basis with hourly and monthly wages derived from the floor wage. It can be set by the center or as well as by the state. Then other aspect are this, under this are mandatory wage slips. So suppose someone is working in an industry or in a company, he or she should get compulsory wage slip. Then occupational safety, health and working conditional rules. So overtime beyond 8 hours per day or 48 hours per week to be paid at double the normal wage. Suppose someone was paying 300 rupees per hour for 8 hours, and if the person or the worker is working more than 8 hours, he or she should get 300 into 2, that is 600 rupees. Then hiring, appointment letter made mandatory. So you cannot hire some person in air. So you should be giving, or the company owner should be giving the appointment letter. Then annual health examination. So to look after the health of the workers, there is provision for annual health examination from the company side of the employees of the age of 40 and above. Then there are other provisions as well. This is special provision for women's employee for their safety and for their better working condition. Then there is codes on social security rules. So it cover gigs and unorganized worker. You might be knowing about unorganized workers, where the company is not set up as an organized setup. So 90% of India's workforce is working in the unorganized sectors. That's why this code particularly become very important, as 90% of India's workforce is there in the unorganized work, in the unorganized sector. Then it also covers the gig workers. Basically, gig workers are the workers who are outside the traditional setup of working. And the example for it, Zomato worker who provide you with the food on delivery, or the workers which are working in Instamart, Uber and other platforms. So under this, Aadhaar linked registration is mandatory for the unorganized worker above the 16 years, and aggregator must register new gig and platform worker on the government portal in real time or daily. So aggregators are basically these companies such as Zomato, Uber, Ola. These companies are known as aggregators. So they have to register if they are bringing some worker on their platform with the government on daily basis or in real time basis. Then there is establishment of social security fund. So there will be contribution from the government as well, but in this fund there will be contribution from the profits of the company. Okay, so this is about the codes on social security rules. Then industrial relation code. Under this there is workers reskilling fund. So employers laying off workers must deposit 15 days salary into reskilling of fund within the 15 days. Suppose someone has laid off one of his or her worker, then they have to pay some amount into workers reskilling fund that would be equal to the 15 days salary of a workers that has been laid off in the 10 days. Then there is model standing orders. So there will be uniform workplace rule introduced through the model standing orders. And about the dispute resolution, it will having rules which will strengthen the grievance redressal, disciplinary action, and the retrenchment procedure. So these are the 4 rules, and they are very important for this year mains examination. Now let us discuss the PYQs related to this news. First of all, the PYQ from the prelims examination of 2022. So the question is, in India, which one of the following compiles information on industrial dispute closure, entrenchment, and layoff in factories employing workers? First option is Central Statistics Office, second Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, third Labor Bureau, fourth National Technical Manpower Information System. Suppose if I have not read particular facts about this question, I would mark in the 99% of the cases, I would mark Central Statistics Office, as it is related to statistics, and there are chances it will also note down the statistics related to the industrial workers. But the correct answer for this is Labor Bureau, that we have discussed while we were discussing facts related to the prelims examination. Now let us discuss one more PYQ from the prelims examination. So this question is from the year 2021. Question is with reference to the casual workers employed in India. It is related to casual workers. Consider the following statement. At that time, the labor codes was not there in the force. So the first statement is all casual workers are entitled for the employees provident fund coverage. So basically there is a demarcation that below 15,000, if someone is having a pay of 15,000 or below, he should have mandatory entitled for the employee provident fund coverage. Otherwise, he won't or she won't be entitled for the employee provident fund coverage. So if you cancel out the first option, so we will left with the second option, that is 2 and 3 only. Now let us read the second statement. All casual workers are entitled for regular working hours and overtime payment. Basically this was a judgment by the Supreme Court in the year 2020, where they have talked about that there should not be difference between permanent workers and the casual workers related to working hours and the overtime payment. So that's why this statement is correct. Third statement, the government can by a notification specify that an establishment or industry shall pay wages only through its bank account. So this can be done by the government. There is one more PYQ from the mains examination of 2024. The question is, discuss the merits and demerits of the 4 labor codes in the context of labor market reforms in India. What has been the progress so far in this regard? So this is the PYQ from the mains examination, where you have to discuss the merits and the demerits as well of the 4 labor codes. So with this, we have completed the discussion of this news. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is related to Jan Suraksha schemes. Jan means normal people, Suraksha means protection. It is related to social protection. So there are basic 3 schemes under this, and PM have highlighted, Honorable Prime Minister have highlighted the impact of these 3 schemes on completing 11 years. Then it is related to paper 2, where syllabus talks about welfare scheme for vulnerable section of the population by the center and state and the performance of these schemes. Let us discuss this news and know about the various aspects which are there under this. First of all, the development. So these schemes, these 3 schemes were launched in the year 2015, and these Jan Suraksha scheme have three schemes, one of which is Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. It is life insurance. Then Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana. It is for accidental coverage. And third is Atal Pension Yojana. It is for providing pension. In this news, we will be covering about various aspects of these three schemes. Basically, these three schemes are under Ministry of Finance. And these three schemes are central sector schemes. Now let us discuss in detail about each aspect from these scheme. First of all, about the Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. So it is a life insurance scheme, and its objective is that it provide a 1-year term life insurance scheme renewable annually, covering death due to any cause. So if there is a death of a person who is under this scheme, the family of that person will be provided with some money. This is the purpose of this scheme. Then under Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, it is 1-year personal accidental insurance scheme which is renewable annually, covering the accidental death and disability. So if some person is there under Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, and if he or she die in accident, so some money will be provided to the family. And if there is disability due to accident, even in such cases also money will be provided. That is under the Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana. Then Atal Pension Yojana, it is a voluntary periodic contribution based pension system to provide old age financial security. So some money is contributed by the individual, and after the completion of the time period, there will be the assured pension to that person. So what is the eligibility? So for Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Yojana, it is individual from 18 to 50 years having a saving bank post office account, and if they have more than one accounts, they can open in only one account. Then for Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, it is for the individual from 18 to 70 years, and similarly they should also have a saving bank or post office account. Then for this Atal Pension Yojana, it include all Indian citizen aged from 18 to 40 years with a bank account, and it does not include the person who pay taxes to the government. So basically now the limit to pay a tax, personal tax, is 12 lakhs rupees. So if someone is not paying taxes to the government and he is or she is from aged between 18 to 40 years, that can be covered under the Atal Pension Yojana. Then what is the premium contribution? For Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, it is 436 rupees. For Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, it is 20 rupees per annum. And for Atal Pension Yojana, it varies based on the entry age. So suppose if someone is entering at the age of 18, he have to pay less or she have to pay less. If someone is entering at the age of 35, he or she have to pay more. Then what are the benefits for Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana? The government will provide 2 lakhs rupees. Then in the Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, the government will provide 2 lakhs for accidental death and 1 lakh for the partial disability. Then in Atal Pension Yojana, there will be guaranteed minimum monthly pension which varies from 1,000 to 5,000 post the 60 years of age. Then after the subscriber's death, his spouse receive the same pension, and after both the death, the accumulated pension wealth is returned to the nominee. Then what are the impacts of these schemes? which our honorable Prime Minister have talked about. And if there is a question in the mains examination, there you have to write about the success of a scheme and also suggest measures to improve that scheme. So here the enrollment under Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Yojana bill is, Jyoti Bima Yojana is more than 27.4.3 crore, and under Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana it is more than 58 crores, and under Atal Pension Yojana it is more than 9 crores. And it has led to, according to the International Labour Organization, India's social security coverage has risen to 64%, which is a very high number. And whenever you are writing about social security and social security protection, you can quote this number and the impact of these schemes. Now India is having 94 citizens are now covered by the at least one form of social protection, and India is the second highest in the volume. First is China. So with this we have completed this news. Now let us discuss one PYQ related to this news, and this is from the prelims 2016 paper. So the question is regarding Atal Pension Yojana, which of the following statement is or are correct? First, it is a minimum guaranteed pension scheme mainly targeted at unorganized sector workers. So it was visible when we were reading about this scheme that the person who is a non-tax employee or who is not giving tax to the government, they can be considered under this. So basically it means unorganized sectors as well. So first statement is correct. Only one member of a family can join the scheme. This is not an correct statement. We have not read such type of condition when we were reading about Atal Pension Yojana. So this is not correct statement. Third, same amount of pension is guaranteed for the spouse for life after the subscriber's death. So this is the exact statement which was given in the beneficiaries. So answer is 3, 1 and 3 only. So with this we have completed the third news. Now let us discuss the next and the last main news for today. It is related to micro irrigation, and the context is that the government have target additional 100 lakhs hectare under the micro irrigation. In this news we will be learning about the National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture and about the micro irrigation as well. It is related to paper 3 where syllabus talks about different type of irrigation and irrigation system. Let us discuss this news in detail. So first of all, the development. So this target will be achieved over a period of 5 years, which is from 2025 to 2030 through the per drop more crop initiative under the National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture. So this is the development that the target which is given by the government will be achieved in 5 years under National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture. And why there is so much focus on micro irrigation? Because as a country we draw the maximum amount of groundwater in the world. That is 1/4 of the groundwater of the world is drawn by India, which is a very huge amount. And in that 87% of the groundwater, which is a fresh water, is used for irrigation, and 11% is used for the domestic purposes. So we are using a lot of groundwater. That's why there are chances that there will be lack of groundwater, and the groundwater table is going down, which will hamper our total irrigation system as well. So this irrigation system or the irrigation system we are generally using is the flooding type of irrigation, where there is a lot of wastage of water. Around 50 to 60% water is wasted in flooding type of irrigation. So government is focusing on micro irrigation. First of all, let us understand what is micro irrigation. So micro irrigation is basically is a modern form of irrigation method in which water is supplied through to crops through drippers, sprinklers and other emitter on the surface or below the soil. So basically under micro irrigation, these roots of the plants or the roots of the crops are targeted, and the water is not flooded. It is sprinkled like this or dripped from the soil or from below the soil, or there are rain guns. So the use efficiency of water is increased in a very high number in micro irrigation. Now let us understand what are the benefits of micro irrigation. First of all, it improves the water efficiency, the water use efficiency of the crop. There will be less wastage of water. Then it improves the energy efficiency as well, because for flooding we are using the pumps, and if we are wasting a lot of water, there will be wastage of energy as well. Then enable efficient fertilization. So after the fertilization, there is requirement of water to use those fertilizers, and if the irrigation is effective, the fertilization will also be effective, that will be used by the plants in a better way. Then it support the water scarce and stress areas, as it is using a very less amount of water to usage in the irrigation. Then it enable the wastewater reuse as well, because we can reuse the wastewater as well, and we don't have to rely on the groundwater only. Then it help cultivate the water intensive crop such as sugar cane, because for sugar cane there is requirement of lot of water, and in that water 60% water is wasted. So if there is micro irrigation, it will benefit the earth or benefit the environment by protecting 60% of water. These are the benefits of the micro irrigation. Now let us move forward and understand about the National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture. So it was launched in the year 2014-15 under the framework of National Action Plan of Climate Change, and since 2022-23 it has been included under Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, and specifically under per drop more crops. So basic aim for that is that for every drop of water there should be more crop. That was under the Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, and this National Mission on Sustainable Development has been included under Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. And the ministry is Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, and aim is to enhance the agriculture productivity while focusing on integrated farming, water use efficiency, soil health management and synergizing resource conservation. So there is talk about, or there is focus about the increase of the productivity. More output should be bought from the agriculture. Then there is also aim for water use efficiency, so that's why there is focus on micro irrigation. Then there is also for the soil health management, because in India the NPK is somewhere between 9:3.5:1, whereas the ideal is 4:3:1. That's why, that means that we are using a lot of fertilizers, and the dependency of soil will increase on fertilizers, as it is becoming a phenomena that we are providing a lot of fertilizers to the soils and that are becoming insufficient. That's why there is focus on the soil health management as well and synergizing the resource conservation. Now let us discuss the component under this mission, one of which is on farm water management, that is per drop more crop. So it promote the precision irrigation, mainly drip and sprinklers, to improve the water use efficiency that we have discussed while we were discussing the micro irrigation. Then rain fed area development, it uses the watershed plus framework for natural resources conservation and integrate the various aspect of farming, such as the water usage in the farming itself, such as the fishing. Then soil health management. So this scheme focuses on location as well as crop specific nutrition management. So there are areas which have very high usage of fertilizers, and there are areas where is low usage of fertilizers. So it is focusing on local specific as well as on the crop specific nutrition management. And lastly, climate change and sustainable agriculture. So basically it help in providing information from scientists to farmers as well as from farmers to scientists, so that there is conversations between farmers and scientists and there is improvement in the farming. So these are the component. Now let us discuss a PYQ related to this news. The PYQ is from the year 2023. It is a statement based question. Statement 1: according to the United Nations World Water Development Report 2022, India extract more than a quarter of the world groundwater withdrawal each year. So when we were discussing, we have discussed that India withdraw around 1/4 of the water. So first statement is correct. Second, India need to extract more than a quarter of the world groundwater each year to satisfy the drinking water and sanitation need of almost 18% of the world population living in its territory. So logic is correct. But when we read the first statement and then we read the second statement, we are extracting so much of water because we are giving that water to agriculture, as agriculture account for 87% of the ground water which is withdrawn in India, and for domestic purposes only 11% is used. That means second statement is not correct. So answer would be C, that statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is incorrect. Now let us discuss two more PYQs. First, from the year 2025 mains examination. Question is: examine the factors responsible for depleting groundwaters in India. What are the steps taken by the government to mitigate such depletion of the groundwater? So agriculture is one of the factor, and this scheme can be written under the government step. Then one more PYQ from the year 2020. Question is: suggest measures to improve water storage and irrigation system to make its judicious use under the depleting scenario. Here you can write about micro irrigation and their benefit. With this, we have completed this news. Now let us move to the next news. Next news is personality in news, and today's personality in news is Rabindranath Tagore. Here we will be discussing about his contribution. So he composed Jana Gana Mana and Amar Sonar Bangla. So these are the national anthem. The Jana Gana Mana is for India and Amar Sonar Bangla is the national anthem of Bangladesh. Then he founded Vishwa Bharati University and Santi Niketan School. Santi Niketan School in the year 2023 was inscribed in the UNESCO's World Heritage Site list as well. So please read about it in a more effective manner or in a more detailed manner. And he advocated for universal humanism. That means that person have basic dignity and it is not confined to a particular area. That is the meaning of universal humanism. And he also advocated for global peace and cultural exchange. The major literary work include in the poetry include the Gitanjali, Manasi, Sonarthari, Gitimalya and Balaka. And his novels are Gora, Gare Bhaire and Yoga Yog. And he was awarded with the Nobel Prize in the year 1913 in the field of literature. And he was the first Indian, first Asian, first non-European to receive the Nobel Prize in literature. And he was given for his work of Gitanjali. He was also conferred by the knighthood by the British in the year 1915, but he have renounced it after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So these are the information, or these are the major information related to Rabindranath Tagore. Now let us discuss the quick updates for today. The first quick update is about the Prevention of Cruelty to Animal Act of 1960, and the context is that the National Crime Record Bureau for the first time has compiled national level statistic data specifically tracking crimes against prevention of cruelty to animal, and the highest crime were in the state of Maharashtra. In this news we will be learning about this act. So this act came into force in the year 1960 and its objective was to prevent infliction of unnecessary pain or suffering on animals. And here animals mean anyone except the humans. So it include birds, it include reptiles, it include other species as well. So the definition of animal under this act is very broad. It also established the Animal Welfare Board of India, whose first chairman was Srimati Rukmani Devi Arundel. She was also a Bharatnatyam dancer, and it is a statutory body established under this act to advise on making rules to prevent animal suffering and to promote animal welfare education in India. Now let us discuss the next quick update. The next quick update is about the scramjet propulsion system. Okay, if you are reading newspaper, you might have learned about ramjet and scramjet here that we will be discussing. So context is that the DRDO have successfully conducted a test of actively cooled full-scale scramjet combustor, achieving a run time over 1200 seconds. Previously, the record or the run time was around 700 seconds. So here we will be learning about the scramjet propulsion system. So scramjet stand for supersonic combustion ramjet. So there is ramjet and there is scramjet. So scramjet is advanced version of ramjet. So it is an advanced air breathing jet engine designed to operate efficiently at hypersonic speed by allowing the combustion of fuel to occur supersonically. So basically there are no moving parts in it, but there is movement, and there is movement of air which come through a cone, and as the speed of the air is very high, that is when it comes through a cone, the speed comes down and the temperature and the pressure become high. So that phenomena is used in the scramjet propulsion system. There are no moving parts here, and it operates at hypersonic speed. Hypersonic speed means 5 times the speed of the sound, and the speed of the sound is 343 meters per second. Ramjet can achieve a speed up to 3 times of that of sound, speed of the sound. What is the operating mechanism that we have discussed? So it is a vehicle forward motion to ram and compresses external air into the combustor. So the air is the air is compressed, and by the compression there is increase in the temperature and the pressure. At that, there is combustion. So it uses the atmospheric oxygen as a oxidizer as it is flies through the air, and the fuel used is hydrogen or advanced liquid hydrocarbon endothermic fuels. So this was about the scramjet propulsion system. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about the National Panchayat Award 2025. So these awards are announced by Ministry of Panchayat Raj, and they have announced for the year 2025. And the Mizoram Katha Note village received the rank in clean and green panchayat category of Deen Dayal Upadhyay Panchayat Satat Vikas Puruskar. There are two type of Puruskar under this. One is Deen Dayal Upadhyay Panchayat Satat Vikas Puruskar, and another one is Nanaji Deshmukh Sarvottam Panchayat Satat Vikas Puruskar. The first one recognize outstanding Gram Panchayat based on their performance in 9 thematic areas. Those thematic areas are defined by Ministry of Panchayati Raj, whereas in Nanaji Deshmukh Sarvottam Panchayat Satat Vikas Puruskar, it honors the overall best performing panchayats. Now let us briefly discuss about the National Panchayat Awards. The core purpose was to award annually to recognize the best performing panchayat. When there is a recognition, there will be improvement, and the other panchayat will also try to achieve the best performing tag. Then what is the assessment framework? So it aligns with the 9 themes of localization of sustainable development goals. What is localization of sustainable goals? Basically, contexting the sustainable development goal at a local level is localization of sustainable development goals. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about the fermented organic manure, and the context is that the Indian Biogas Association has called for 10% mandatory blending of fermented organic manure with chemical fertilizers by the year 2030. So fertilizers as a sector is there in the news continuously, because we are dependent on imports for fertilizers, and there can be a shortage of fertilizer due to the disturbance in the Western Asia. Here we will be learning about the fermented organic manure. So it is a type of organic fertilizer produced through a controlled fermentation process of organic materials like manure, crop residue and compost. So basically controlled fermentation is taking place. What is fermentation? It is an anaerobic, that is, it does not use oxygen. Microorganisms does not use oxygen and uses the starch or carbohydrate to produce glucose or acids. That is basic fermentation, and it is a byproduct of operation of biogas or compressed biogas plant used as a fertilizers. And its uses are: it supply essential plant nutrition, rejuvenate the soil health, enhances the beneficial microbial activities, and strengthen the climate resilience in agriculture system. So basically it is an organic form of fertilizers which improve the crop production without harming the soil health. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about the Divyastra missile. So the context is that India have conducted the second successful flight trial of Divyastra missile from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island, which is there in Odisha. In this news, we will be covering about this missile. So it is an advanced Agni missile equipped with the multiple independent targeted re-entry vehicle system. So it is an advanced Agni missile. Agni missile is a long range missile of India that can have nuclear warhead as well, and it is surface to surface ballistic missile. Now what is this MIRV, that is multi-independently targeted re-entry vehicle system? So basically various targets can be planned and there can be launched from a particular missile. It was originally developed in the early 1960s, and it allows a single missile to carry multiple nuclear warhead, each capable of striking different target independently. So we are launching a missile and it have multiple nuclear warhead that can attack on various targets independently. That is the meaning of multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicle system. The United States of America, which was the first country to develop this technology, and Russia, the the United Kingdom, France, China also have this technology. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about Chief of Defense Staff. So the government has appointed Lieutenant General N.S. Raja Subramani as the next CDS. In this news, we will be learning about CDS. So when was the genesis of the post as the CDS? The genesis was felt. Post of CDS was created in the year 2019 on the recommendation of group of minister in the of the year 2001 based on the 1990 K Subramaniam committee or the Kargil review committee report. So basically this committee have found out that in the Kargil war there was less or there was slow passage of information or slow contribution from all the forces at a particular time. That's why there was a need or there was a required post which can act as a CDS, that is Chief of Defense Staff. And what are the roles and responsibilities of CDS? First, that he or she act as a principal military advisor to the Raksha Mantri, that is Defense Ministry, in all the tri-services matters that include Army, Indian Navy and Indian Air Force. Then he or she act as head of the Department of Military Affairs, and he work for bringing synergy in all the three forces. Then he is permanent chairperson of Chief of Staff Committee, act as the first among equal to coordinate between the three services chief. So this was about the CDS. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about the Caspian Sea. And the context here is that it has emerged as a backdoor for military and commercial logistics between Russia and Iran amidst the ongoing West Asian conflict, because it shares borders. So first of all, it is the largest inland water body or largest lake located at the intersection of Eastern Europe and the Western Asia. And its neighboring countries, you can remember by the name Tariq. T stands for Turkmenistan, A stands for Azerbaijan, R stands for Russia, and I stand for Iran, and K stands for Kazakhstan. As it share border with Russia and Iran, so it is emerging as a backdoor for military and the commercial logistic between these two countries. And it is formed by the Volga River at its primary source, providing approximately 80% of its water inflow. And as there is evaporation as well, so it is salty in nature, but it is less salty when compared to the ocean water. What is the current status? That it is rich in oil and natural gas, and the Caspian Sea have shrunk by 40% due to evaporation, as well as there is constructions on the Volga River for various purposes such as dams. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is about the species, that is gharial, and the context is that gharial was recently spotted in Assam's Kaziranga National Park after a long time. It was believed that they were only remaining in the tributaries of Ganga and Mahanadi, but now they were visible in Brahmaputra river. In this news, we will be learning about gharial. So they are males have a length of 3 to 6 meters, whereas females have 2.5 to 4 meters. 2.5 to 4 meters. That means males have the longer length, and they weigh between 150 to 250 kgs with bulbous knob at the end of the snout. If you see the snout of the gharial, you will see the bulbous knob, and that will be only present on the male gharial. Okay, and its habitat and distribution, it only survive in India and Nepal, and its population is around only 800. They are primarily in the Ganga's tributary and the Mahanadi. Now, but as they were visible in the Brahmaputra, the recent sighting confirmed their presence in the Brahmaputra river system as well. Now let us discuss about their conservation status. They are critically endangered in IUCN list, and they are under the Schedule 1 of India's Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. With this, we have completed our News Today discussion for today. And if you want to read further various current affairs initiative of us, you can visit the digital current affairs website of Vision IAS, and you can also solve the smart quizzes there, and also solve the questions which are visible on your screen. Thank you and all the best for your preparation.